this post-game show. We're here to conclude the show
What
with Jimmy
happened?
Toscano.
I
We
think
had
it's
a
just us, dude.
we had a technical issue. There's still some people here. We had a technical issue, and we will try to get the word out. Uh,
Stamp, we had a technical issue on my forehead tonight. Just stamp
yeah,
that on there.
yeah. We think Josue crashed the whole
Sherrod.
thing. Yeah.
Well, what do you got over there?
Lemonade,
Okay, like that.
not Mike's.
I'm
Regular
rolling with
lemonade.
a seltzer myself.
Seltzer water. Okay.
John, you saying there's people in this chat?
There's a few
I mean,
that got redirected to this link. We'll put the word out. If anybody jumps on, that's great. If not, we will just wrap it up.
We
But
gotta
for
get
those
Bobby
of you
back.
who didn't hang out here, uh, yeah, we got to try to get Bobby back and get the Bobby report, and then we'll wrap it up. We get the Bobby Manning report. Yeah, it was. I was building up the Bobby bucket hat thing like crazy, and I failed. And the stream crashed. The stream could not. The stream could not handle your bucket hat, Bobby.
Yeah,
That's what
once it
happened.
saw it, it
Yeah.
crashed.
Before you say anything great, hang on a little bit as we send the link back out to some people and see whether or not they join.
Is this
So
on
let me
Twitter?
just say this off the top, John. I got the Jimmy report coming in. I'm stunned you weren't just sounding
wasn't
the alarm
mad.
after this one.
He's not mad at all. He's actually
Meaning, no.
happy.
Listen, it's not. It's not. So again, there's a little more nuance to it than that.
Well,
Like,
you literally said
I
I'm not
spent in the same way I spent the entire Golden State game furious, and then they turned it around and won. I spent most of this game pleasantly surprised by what they were able to do so shorthanded, the contributions they were getting, the way Tatum was playing, the way White played. Just overall, it was a positive experience until it wasn't. And then it just got so ugly so fast. So everything you're going to say about the way that the game ended, the 15-0 run, them not scoring
He's
any
backtracking.
points in that fourth quarter, Missoula not calling timeouts, that last
13
play,
and a quarter is
He's
brutal.
going Ty Law
all
on
of
us right
it,
now. He's
all of it
backtracking.
sucked. But as I said, I spent most of the night thinking this was a good effort, and then they just friggin' cratered.
It was a good effort on defense.
They were fine, Bobby. They had 80-something points through three quarters. It was not terrible.
That's not
they were,
great.
They were
This
on
team scores
pace.
110 showing up.
I get it, but without four starters, you're going to go in there. They scored 58 points in the first half. That's on par with where you're going to go. They were doing fine. They're 82 after three. It wasn't a horrible offensive effort. They were shooting well. They just shut down. They were over 50% field goals through three quarters.
I don't think anyone
It was
has
an
a problem
efficient
with.
game.
I don't think anyone has a problem with the way they played for three plus quarters. But
Yeah.
last time I checked, they played 4 quarters in a basketball game.
I get it. It's not. I don't need to be schooled on that facet. I'm just simply saying.
Dude,
I'm
you might have
simply
to
saying. Through three quarters, my
Homeschool,
mood
baby.
was up, and then they absolutely went in the tank, and that was that.
Yeah, and the only issue I have with it is that it looks like old issues for them. It looks like old issues for Tatum, in particular, holding the ball too long. He just talked about it. We just got out of the interview with him. He said if I made quicker decisions, we probably would have won this game, but he allowed the Heat to load up on him. I think they froze against the zone late, made bad decisions. That pass was just brutal, and he took credit for that. He said, forget all the timeouts and Joe talk. This was on me, and good to hear that from him, but tough to see him lead a 5 of 21 effort in the fourth. I thought he did a good job for most of this game, spraying the ball out, finding guys, setting up Luke off the bench on rolls. And
Tatum had like
involved.
Tatum had whatever he'd had on only 14 shots, through three quarters there, like 27 points on 14 shots. He got to the line 12 or 13 times. Like, it was an extremely efficient, patient, game, considering that he had no firepower to work with. That's what I was saying. I was like, it's pretty impressive how they're able to hang with this. They were really keeping it together, and then they absolutely went in the
seven
tank.
turnovers, though. It takes away from it, and you hold him to a higher standard. We've talked about this.
That's
John.
always the problem with Tatum. The more you put the ball in his hand, the more he's going to turn it over. The more you ask him to be a playmaker, the more you're making him be your primary ball handler. That's what's going to happen.
And
which
it's
is why,
tough on a night where
which
you
is
got
why it's not a role that's suited for him. I never liked the idea before they added White and before they added Smart and early last year, this notion of the offense runs through Tatum. I always thought that was stupid. And you see why. He cannot be the guy. He can be a guy who also makes the right read, makes the right pass when the moment calls for it, but it shouldn't be running through him. It's a burden that's too great for him. It's not something that he excels at. And yeah, the 7 turnovers are the 7 turnovers, and the last one was crippling. It was horrible.
And it's reality, right? I would have loved to have seen more White in that spot, especially with the game he had, but it's just not going to happen. You might see Tatum defer to Smart in that spot, but probably aren't going to see the ball funnel through White in crunch time. And that means it's going to be in Tatum's hands and stopping on certain possessions, particularly with the lead. I mean, this team just really struggles with the lead in these spots. If they're on a comeback, there's a lot more urgency, there's a lot more pace and actions, frankly, down the stretch of games. But you don't see them doing the things they do throughout flows of games in these spots. And I got to dive into the numbers. Probably a good thing to do later tonight on these situations for them. 2 years ago, they're as bad as anyone in crunch time, fourth quarters. And it's because of this. Like they just defer or divert from what will work for the rest of the game and move into isolations or slowing it down or running the shot clock down. And this was a weird game. You had that shot clock situation that screwed them. You had a couple of calls, I think, that frustrated them again in this one, got into their heads. And I don't think the focus was great when they felt like the game got in hand late. So I think this one just kind of creeped up on them. And that's worrisome because this could happen in a playoff situation. Could happen with guys out there who you trust more. Like, did they lose this game because of Pritchard or Luke?
No, but those guys, I think that puts up that.
Hauser
that
gave
really,
you great defense in this. This is the best defensive game.
But that's not what he's here
career.
to do. But he did play a good game. But 26 minutes and not making a single shot. Look, Sherrod made the point earlier. Everyone steps up a notch on the ladder. And when you have multiple people out and they're asked to play a bigger role than they're normally accustomed to. Most of them didn't really do much with it. Grant in the starting lineup, you need him when you have a lot of your offensive players out. He's got to find a way to score. He can't even find a way to get shots off.
I thought Grant had such a worse game than the stat sheet showed. Like, I looked at the stat sheet after and I was like, whoa, he did all that, like 3 of 3 from 3. He was brutal. I thought ball over the baseline drive.
He had that 1-3.
The front rim in crunch time, they really needed to just get one shot to go, and he had that point blank look and just smashed off the front of the rim.
It's, again, Pritchard playing, and that's the thing. Grant against the starters playing starter minutes. This is why he's not a $20 million player in my mind. That's not what he does. He does well playing against second units. That's mainly where he's made his bones, and it is what it is. Peyton Pritchard asked to kind of step up and be a point guard. Remember the year when it was Teague and Pritchard and we're begging for Pritchard to start, and when he did start, he would shrink? Again, that's rookie year. But again, you see when these guys are up against the kind of big boy competition, it's tougher for them, and you put Hauser out there. What were we saying the other day? Hauser's just got to play his minutes, and whatever happens. They had no choice but to play him tonight, and he came up with a goose egg. So the guys you're looking for to step up in the absence of the players you have really didn't do anything.
Oh, what?
Lost your audio.
But, you guys got me back?
Yeah, but you sound like you're in Tin Can John again from last game.
No, I'm back. I'm back.
I get what you're saying, John. You want more from those guys in spot situations, but you also take what they can give you. I don't know how you feel about that, Sherrod. Like, I thought if you're going to get great defense, team system defense from these guys, hold Miami to 32% through 3 quarters and build a nearly double-digit lead. And yes, they had a double-digit lead with 8 minutes to go. They did their job. Starters come in, starters blew this game. And that's all there is to it. Your main guys you rely on night in, night out. Tatum, White, who I thought was good, but probably could have done more late, and Grant particularly need to do more in that spot. Even Rob, so good on Bam all game. Bam took it to him in the end and got the better of that matchup. So
yeah. I mean, the bottom line is that these are the games where those guys at the end of the bench, all the under the breath, wishing I could play more. You
Justin
got your
Jackson.
opportunity. Yeah, I thought, I thought Jackson wasn't that bad considering where he is, and I mean he's like basically Mr. number 14 or 15, depending on what number where you want to put
Probably
him.
15.
I,
Yeah.
I thought he did some good things, but the thing that they're trying to still get a pulse for is how can I make an impact that's positive for the team. And like Sam Hauser, a great example. I thought he did so many intangible things in this game and played good defense. But the one thing he couldn't do, and we talked about it earlier, he couldn't make shots. That's literally the one thing that you're paid to do is make shots when you get open, and even when you're not open. And he has been in this weird funk for like the last month or so, where there just hasn't been any kind of flow or rhythm to what he can do. But they need guys to make the most of their opportunities because that's part of the thinking behind having load management. Give core guys a chance to rest and still win games. And those guys are getting those opportunities. They got to be better at that.
They have. And this is the key to this stretch here before the trade deadline, which is going to be 15 days away. You look at these guys, you assess them. I'm actually glad that they're giving some guys some rest and putting these guys in frontline positions because you're going to have to make the decisions on whether you can consolidate, which I think John advocated for last time we talked on the thread there, being able to trade a Pritchard and Gallinari or whoever else down there on the roster could get you one more bona fide rotation player, or have these guys around and just roll with what's worked so far. And it really is a tough call because you don't know if who's coming in is going to fit, be productive. And you also don't know, like, you know that Pritchard can give you a spot good night in the regular season, and you feel good about that. And Cornette, Hauser, and all the way down the line, like these guys have given them good minutes.
You can't play them in the playoffs.
All the way down.
Come
the line.
playoff time, if you
It's a thin line.
lose a guy, if you lose a guy and one of these guys steps in the playoffs, they might not even go to one of these guys.
Yeah,
or if they do, you have
that's
no
the thing.
clue what you're gonna get.
What are you trying to do here? Okay, you're trying to win a title. You're not talking about like this isn't like a Red Sox deal where you trade all of your top prospects for one pitcher in this down the stretch, pay this massive price to try to win that year. You're basically saying to win a title this year with this team, you might need like just a little something more. You're going to let Peyton Pritchard stand in the way of that? That's asinine to me. This is not a coveted asset. If you are going to use Peyton Pritchard and he has value, then trade White or Smart and try to get something big. But if you're not doing that, you trade Pritchard for things that you need, either a big that can play 15 minutes a game, 18 minutes a game, or a wing who's not Sam Hauser, who can just come in and give you competent minutes. Those things might be the difference between winning and not winning. That's what you need. That this team is nearly, you're not going to say flawless or perfect, but this team does not have gaping holes. You just need to patch up a couple of things and you're done. So like you can't let small little things like that stand in your way. In fact, you're more likely to overpay if you get a guy who you really think can fit here and kind of get you over a hump. Again, like I'm not saying this player, but like everybody wants their PJ Tucker. You need your guy, your glue guy, your Crowder, your last little piece, which is like your PJ Brown. That's what I want. I got my PJ Brown. I'm ready to roll, and You're in, and you're done. That's what.
But those
you
are
need.
buyouts, though.
You need your PJ Brown. You can get it through the buyout market. What I'm saying is, if it's available and the price is Pritchard, you do it without blinking.
I would agree with that. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now you look at this roster and say if they're fully healthy, they're going to be the team to beat. You lose one guy, you can probably survive that, depending on who it is, obviously. You lose two guys, you're probably going to be in some trouble here.
That's most teams,
You're missing three teams. Yeah, and that's the point, Jimmy. Like, we all try to imagine this perfect Celtics roster that has all the pieces it needs and all the holes are fit. Like, every team has holes, and this team's hole is probably the back end of that rotation, which is, probably an admirable negative to have on your roster. If that's all that's wrong with your roster is like the deep depth, that's fine. Like you have everything you need on the top end for the most part.
Well, here's a question for you, Bobby, and everybody else. Where does Gallinari fit in all this?
So I asked Joe yesterday about Gallinari, and he joked around that like he's sprinting faster than ever before on the treadmill, and you see him on these trips, and he's pushing hard. He really is. But we've had this conversation. I don't see a timeline where
But
he
are
can be
they
productive
thinking?
part
Do you
of this
think the
team.
Okay, that was my question. I mean, do
I
you
don't
think the
see.
Celtics think that he could be back for the playoff run, and that would be the
I don't
wing
know.
depth there?
This feels like Gordon Hayward, doesn't it?
It
They're
does.
not gonna rule it out. Nor will they announce it's possible, because then people will want it to happen, and then they'll be
But maybe
disappointed when it
they
doesn't.
know
But I
more.
think
I don't know.
they're leaving a candle out. They're leaving the door
Right.
a crack open, and if Gallinari is able to come back, they'll let him. I don't think they're counting on it, but I mean it's it's at the very early part of the best case scenario of an ACL recovery, which is 8 months. If he gets it, he gets it, which gets him back in late March, early April, in time to get conditioned and maybe contribute a little in the playoffs. That's it. Like the door's open, but I mean, I don't think they're counting. I
So then
I
you
don't know
need,
if you
then
get
you
a
need a
feeling.
wing. So then you need a wing.
I think they're sneaky. I think they're
There's a prayer.
somewhat optimistic that it's possible. It's not a completely shut door. I don't think. I think they think it's possible.
Yeah,
I think that Gallinari is going to push it to play, and I think they're going to let him. It's not like we're dealing with a guy who's 23 years old here, and they have to think about this career long term. This guy wants to win a championship.
What do you think
here's
would
the
have
thing.
happened?
It's not an easy conversation. We've had it. This is such a big year for them. You don't know when the doors this open again. You don't know when the roster's in such a good of a place as it is now. You have picks. You have salaries. If you can find one guy, even if it's a rental like Pirtle, and it seems like they really like this Pirtle idea. You keep hearing about it over and over and over again. I don't know if that's the move, but if it's Gallinari and Pritchard and you're like 2028 protection on that pick and your 2025 pick, if you really think Pirtle like solidifies your playoff chance or gives you that insurance that if you lose one of these bigs down the stretch, which is obviously your biggest concern health-wise, if that makes you more bulletproof as a championship contender, all you're giving up is Gallinari's contract, Pritchard, 2 picks. Is that a ton to pay for some big insurance on your
It's not. I
championship
just think they
odds?
need something else more, and especially since Pirtle's a rental and they're probably not going to re-sign him long term. If it's a one and done, it doesn't really make sense to me. Like I'd shop for something else. The same way I felt with White last year. I'm like, everyone's like perfect fit. I'm like, I felt like they needed other things. And it's fine to get, ultimately you want talent, and all they wanted to do was bolster their talent. They needed more NBA players because they didn't have enough of them. So adding him was good in the same way you just added Brogdon. That was the best NBA player you were going to get this year with the pieces that they traded. But there's still areas of need you would rather address. And if you can do that, I would consider doing that. That's all. And the Pirtle thing feels like a third big. I mean, how many centers do you need?
It's insurance.
Insurance is ridiculous. Like you can't insure things in the postseason. Like if your best players get hurt, you just lose. Like that's what happens. Middleton goes out, you lose. Like it doesn't matter if you have a wing
But you know what
behind
the Rob
Middleton.
situation
No
is,
one's
John.
going to supplement what Middleton does. So again, you're going to bring in a starter caliber guy as insurance. It's insane to me. Like Pirtle's a starter. Like Pirtle's a good player. You're going to bring him in to back up 2 other guys. It just seems like a weird waste. You have other needs. I think you got to address them if you can. Pirtle's going to be a hefty price for a thing that's an insurance and a bit of a luxury.
John,
I don't fully get it.
What are we going to say if we get to June and Rob's knee flares up and you lose the title?
It will suck.
We're going to have lived this whole year for not insuring your product here. And that's the balance they're striking here is, yes,
the reasoning for keeping Pritchard right now is insurance, and you're going to trade insurance for insurance. I don't fully get it.
Well, Pritchard and Hauser and Cornette and these kind of guys, you also look at them as your system, and you're trying to raise these guys up year after year, get them more and more ready. I mean, what these guys were when they first arrived in Boston, all of them, versus what they are now, is impressive. And we've talked about their organizational depth. It is kind of comparable to baseball, John. Like their farm system was empty. And now you have your Pritchards, Cornettes, and Hausers, and you're trying to bring up the Captain Galley.
That's still
and JD
empty,
behind
Bobby.
them.
That's empty. That's empty.
we can split hairs there, but they have guys
No,
in
it's
those
not splitting
positions.
hairs. These are not prospects on the Celtics have here. They do not have prospects.
They're not great prospects, but it's what they have. And so you could clear them out again and then have nothing there, which would be no Pritchard, no Hauser, no Cornette, all the guys down the line. Or
they have roster
go all
filler.
in on
That's
one.
all they've got. They've got roster filler.
All right, so you should want to trade them.
You
He
absolutely want
He
to
does.
trade them. I just want to trade them for something other than Pirtle. That's all.
All right, that's just the name we have. So
Yeah.
we'll
That's
think
all.
about wings and other big men, or maybe more versatile 4 or 5
wings and,
guys.
wings
in that
and
spot.
things. Yeah.
Wings
Yeah.
and things.
That's
But
what I'm
I don't know.
thinking.
I don't hate the Pirtle idea just because the two things we've talked about: insurance for Rob, insurance against a Grant departure in the offseason, which is also the other thing we have to factor in here.
I have a question for you guys. What do you think would have happened to Grant this year if Gallinari was healthy all year?
What do I think would have happened to him?
Yes.
You would have had a battle.
Plays less minutes.
It would have been interesting, right?
Would have had a battle, especially since Gallinari plays the same position.
Yeah.
Hauser probably plays the wing spot. You can't play him at the 5 and 4. That's where Gallinari would have had to play.
Would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm just curious. It is so funny. Like the whole thing is interesting. Just how it's worked out. Yeah. But anyway, we are going to wrap it. This was our we wanted to get Bobby in. We know the stream crashed. We
I don't know
apologize.
what the hell happened. Yeah, that was crazy.
I hate blaming the tech, but
speaking of Grant, I did talk to him tonight after the
system
loss.
crashed. Yeah.
I'm going to have some more coming from that on CLNS Media, but he is struggling over the last month plus here, and you're starting to see these defenses force him into some really tough decisions in those spots. He had that 1 for 8 game we talked about against Charlotte. Tonight again, I thought the Heat really took him out of the corners and made him play around the basket more, and it's just been a challenge for him. And he admitted to me he's been struggling to make those decisions out of the corner, the up fakes. You see him do it again and again out of those spots, kind of dribble into chaos once he gets taken out of those corners.
It's a bad shooting month for him. He's 40% from the field, 30 from 3 for the month. He's got 2 20-point games, but he's got a lot of no-shows, so he's really struggling to figure out how to affect the game on the offensive end.
Yeah, and that's a big part of this audition. He's on for free agency, and you almost wonder how much that comes into play. I'm sure I'll talk to him at some point about that. Tonight probably wasn't the night, but I want to see what he's going through there, and I got some good insight from him.
He's going through the mediocrity that's coursing through his veins. I don't know what it is. It just is what it is. I don't know how else to put it. He's not a star. He's a bench. He's a contributing player. He's a role player who right now is struggling within that role as well. But he's not him. I mean, he's good. I do think we've inflated Grant to a weird mythical status. He can do some good things, and when he gets hot and when he gets in those when he's hitting those threes from the corner, it's great. And when he can guard Giannis or guard one of those bigger guys and kind of give you an extra body to throw at some of those guys, those are great. But I think we're picking moments from Grant and turning them into his everything. And I don't think Jimmy's mentioned it before. It's just not a night in, night out thing, with him. He's a role player. And when he plays
he's
his
situational
role,
too. On top
yes, and situational. When he plays it well in the right situation, he's excellent to have on the team. It's better to have him than not have him. But again, I just don't know that he's this irreplaceable cog here.
No.
You need him to be more involved though, because of how efficient he is, and I think that efficiency is what takes him from being a role guy to someone who's important and should factor in more than he doesn't in crunch time situations. Not always, of course. You have your lineup there with your guards, your forwards, and your one center. But when he needs to close a game like this, needs to be involved and make good, quick decisions on top of it. So he does, as much as Tatum, is part of that.
You got to look at Grant, just what he is. Grant is a guy who's just a man without a position. That's always been his issue. He's done a really good job for himself to turn him into a 3-and-D sort of guy by slimming down, working on that 3-point shot, adapting his game from what it was in college. But the reality is he's not super quick to stick a three and get on guys. He can remain competitive. He's not big enough to really bang with bigs. When he gets into the paint, he has a difficult time getting his shot off. I mean, he's fairly limited in what he can do. So when you ask him to kind of reach beyond that, or when the defenses are doing what they're doing now and kind of, running him off the corner here and trying to get him to, get to the basket, it's just not his game. It's not what he's suited to do. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, we're going to wrap again. Thanks, guys, for jumping on this stream. Those of you that did. Thanks, Sherrod and Jimmy, for hanging in there through our technical difficulties. Josue, we're going to have
Pray
to
for
check in.
Josue.
Everybody pray for Josue.
Just say a prayer for him tonight. We're not sure. We haven't been able to.
Bobby,
we haven't been able to get in touch with him.
Bobby, is that steel drums going in the background?
Bobby, what's up tonight, man?
I hope so. I need a show. I don't know, Jimmy. Have you been down here? I've usually been in and out. I got the whole day tomorrow, which is gonna be great.
Oh wow, you lathering up? You get the SPF going?
As Jimmy likes to say, the cream cheese.
I checked cream cheese.
I checked into the golf course this morning, which was great. Played pretty good too. Had like 3 or 4 pars.
Wow,
Really?
I love that.
Yeah, it was an easy course, but again,
I didn't know you were a mini golfer.
It was borderline mini golf. It was a par 3, but felt good to be out there. Had fun.
There you go. Hey, mini golf is good.
Hey, I finally got a burner.
Hey, we saw that 2 days ago or yesterday, I guess.
It is pies. Nice.
Very good. Everybody pray for Sway.
Sway thought it was actually you. He didn't know the joke.
No, I was legit out. I was out. I was entertaining. The 5 o'clock game threw me. Anyway, thanks guys for hanging out. We're back on Thursday. All of these knuckleheads will be back at the Garden, doing their thing. Knicks Celtics, always fun. Randall had himself a little bit of at least a good early start to tonight's game. I'm not sure how that ended. They ended up winning, I think.
Nice.
Right?
Good for them.
They did. They beat the Cavs. He had 36. Yeah.
Wow.
Lakers and Nets after that.
Bobby needs an apology, Cam, for Randall, who we wrote off last year. He's been much better. But anyway,
sneaky top 10 scorer, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we're done. Thanks again for those of you who hopped over from one stream to the other. We're sorry for the technical difficulties. Yeah. But we will see
Won't happen
you guys
again.
on one stream and one stream only on Thursday night. We promise that. Take care.